All right. And I will introduce Andrew, who I've gotten to know through the Interfaith Council, though we are both now Episcopal clergy. And the Reverend Andrew Lee is a transitional deacon in the Episcopal Diocese of California and will be ordained a priest in June. He is also a spiritual director and retreat leader and is pursuing a PhD at Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, where he specializes in medieval mysticism and spirituality. He and his wife, Catherine, live in Nevada with their cats, Maximus the Confessor and Gertrude the Great. Andrew and Catherine are currently leading a centering prayer and lectio divina meditation group at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in San Rafael. All are welcome. And with that, I will turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you, everyone. It is so good to see all of you, especially so many familiar faces and some folks I don't know. I'm so grateful that you're here. We're going to talk about Meister Eckhart and meditate with him. And at some points, I may have to defer to Sister Bruno, because Sister Patricia, because I'm sure she knows more about Eckhart than I do. But Eckhart was this amazing mystic who I think has some things to say to us today, especially in these really confusing, troubled, dark times that we live in. And so the meditation is called Wisdom from Meister Eckhart in These Dark Times. And Meister Eckhart was from Germany, or what became Germany eventually. He was born in the 1200s and lived into the 1300s. And we don't know anything about his childhood, but we do know that he very early became a Dominican friar, part of the Dominican order, and was trained very well, very highly educated in theology and, like all Dominicans, in preaching, and became a teacher of theology. And he lived at a time in which the authorities were getting more and more concerned about heresy and different spiritual movements that were going on. And so he very quickly fell afoul of the authorities, especially because the things he was writing were so profound and so deep that it's quite likely some of the people who were bringing these charges didn't really understand what he was talking about. But in any case, he was charged with heresy. His superiors in the Dominican order strongly supported him and said, no, he's not guilty of this. He's Orthodox. Eventually, he was declared not to be a heretic himself, but a few of his writings were declared to be heretical. Unfortunately, Meister Eckhart died before that procedure was completed, and so he never knew the result of that trial. There have been numerous attempts to rehabilitate his reputation over the years, and just recently, the Catholic authorities have said that no, Eckhart's not a heretic. He never was declared a heretic. Just a few of his writings. So he's an Orthodox teacher. He's a legitimate teacher, and even more so, there's been some observation that we don't even know why some of these writings were declared heretical, because there's no transcripts of the trial, and so maybe none of it was heretical. In any case, such is the sad life of a medieval mystic, but for us, we have this profound wisdom from him that we can learn from. And Eckhart was this, was someone who just saw into the depths, I think, of the divine and into the depths of the human heart, and certainly someone we can benefit from. He was a big proponent of what we call negative theology, which means that he said that the divine is beyond anything that we can say, anything we can posit in theological language. And so anytime we say, well, God is like this, well, that's not really true. God is not like that. God is like this. No, God is not like that. It's negative theology because we can't say what God is like in words. We can only get to know God in the depths of our heart. And Eckhart said that human beings are mirrors of the divine. And so what we need to do as human beings is to sort of let go, free ourselves from all our attachments, and just open to becoming God in a sense, allowing God to awaken in us, the sense of God to awaken in us, to be like the divine because we already are, to awaken to the spark of the divine that's already within ourselves. And we do that not through theology and intellect, even though he was very intellectual. He said we do that through the process of letting go. And that's something we can engage through meditation. And so we'll meditate on one of his sermons. And his sermons were beautifully written, almost like poetry. And I have a collection of his sermons that has been translated into a very readable modern English style. And so I think it'll help us to meditate with something that he said. And so I'd like to offer this lectio meditation. And in classic lectio style, I'll read this passage from Meister Eckhart 4 times. And each time I'll offer some instructions for us to meditate on. As we listen to this piece from Meister Eckhart the first time, I invite you to listen for a word or phrase that strikes you in some way. Stay with it throughout the reading. And after the reading, I invite you, if you like, just to drop your word or phrase into the chat to share in the sacred container of this group. Who can understand this? That God is creating the world not out there, but in the innermost part of the soul, where there is no time nor the light of any image. If you imagine this, you will know, if only in a small way, that even in the darkness, you are no more separate from the world than God is. And if you glimpse this, even if for a moment, you will know that God is becoming human again and again, even now, even in you. As we listen to the passage for a second time, I invite you to remain with the word or phrase that struck you. Let it be a lens by which you see this passage in new ways. Let it color and shape your hearing of this reading for the second time. And after the reading, we'll have a few moments of silence to continue our meditations together in the private of our own hearts. Who can understand this? That God is creating the world not out there, but in the innermost part of the soul, where there is no time nor the light of any image. If you imagine this, you will know, if only in a small way, that even in the darkness, you are no more separate from the world than God is. And if you glimpse this, even if for a moment, you will know that God is becoming human again and again, even now, even in you. As we listen to the reading for the third time, I invite you to listen for some response arising deep within yourself. Not just an intellectual response, but something deep within you. Perhaps a prayer or a blessing, a wish or a hope, or perhaps some action that you feel called to do in the world in response to the passage in your meditations. Something really meaningful that comes from deep within who you are. And in the silence after the reading, if you'd like, I invite you just to drop one or two words in the chat that say something about your response, if you'd like to share. Who can understand this? That God is creating the world not out there, but in the innermost part of the soul, where there is no time nor the light of any image. If you imagine this, you will know, if only in a small way, that even in the darkness you are no more separate from the world than God is. And if you glimpse this, even if for a moment, you will know that God is becoming human again and again, even now, even in you. As we listen to the passage for the final time, I invite you to let go of any attempts to analyze it or critique it with your mind. Let go of intellectual attempts to grasp what the words are saying. And just rest with the words. Allow them to sink deeply into your heart. Allow yourself to encounter the divine presence in the words and within you. And I invite you to continue to do that even in the silence that will follow this final reading. And I'll close this out once that silence is over. Who can understand this? That God is creating the world not out there, but in the innermost part of the soul, where there is no time nor the light of any image. If you imagine this, you will know, if only in a small way, that even in the darkness, you are no more separate from the world than God is. And if you glimpse this, even if for a moment, you will know that God is becoming human again and again, even now, even in you. I invite you to allow your breath to deepen. As you're ready, allow your eyes to gently float open. Take your time. Gradually return your attention, your consciousness to this room that we have here together. Amen. I'd like to thank you all for meditating with me and with Meister Eckhart. And at this time, I'd like to invite you, if you'd like, to just unmute yourself briefly and share if there's anything you'd like to share about your experience of the meditation or just something you noticed or observed. And feel free just to, there's no order of who needs to speak when. Just feel free to unmute yourself and speak if you would like to share something. I would ask that you are not speaking, you do keep yourself muted so we don't have a lot of background noise, and also that we can focus our full attention on whoever is speaking at that time.
And I will pause, I will stop the recording so that we don't record anyone.